Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ number 85, the series where I answer all of your questions, whether they're sharp or dull. And this week, amongst other things, we're talking about some good gifting knives and some good boozy knives as well. Let's check them out. Welcome to this Knife AQ series where we comb through our comments section below this video and pull out some good questions to feature in future episodes. So if you're looking for a shot at getting featured, just leave it in that comment section below. First question today comes from Huibu Nope.
Okay.
I like to grip my knives as close to the cutting edge as possible to keep the lever as short as possible. The best design in the folder department that I've been able to find are the Spydercos with the nice big finger choil. But Spydercos are kind of out of my price range, so I was wondering if you could give me some pointers of good designs in the budget department. Sure thing. Actually, I didn't pull one with a choil, but I have one in my pocket here. Shaman for exclusive right here, which is kind of nice. So I know what you mean. Being able to use the choil on the front of that knife right there to get right behind the cutting edge is very nice. But Spydercos, I don't think, are actually out of your price range. You can take a look at the Bird range from Spyderco that come with finger choils like that. Another fantastic option would be the Tenacious. Tenacious Lightweight starts at around 50 bucks, still less than 50 bucks, I believe. And this version right here even is not so much in the budget department like you asked for. Comes in about 107 with an S35 VN blade. I still think is a really good value. But what's really something I've always admired about this design is the fact that even without a choil, you can still get right up behind that edge. And it still manages to give you some finger guard protection too, which is a nifty trick to pull off in a folder. You don't see it, quite honestly, too often at all. Very, very cool. And you're able to put that maximum leverage, maximum pressure there right behind your cut when you're able to choke up like that. Make sure to check those knives out too. Real good value, like I said, that S35 version. Another good kind of classic budget knife option that'll let you do this is the Ontario Rat 1. Knife Center exclusive version right here with Micarta and D2. Comes in about 50 bucks, but these start around the 30, 32, somewhere around that dollar mark for the least expensive versions. You don't have a choil, but you've got a fairly wide ricasso on the blade itself, or if we're measuring the length of it, and due to the handle or the design of the handle right behind that, it gives you a nice flat spot rather than a choil for choking up, and you can do the same thing. Get right there behind the edge, really, really push. So these are also fantastic budget options that'll let you do that. And don't sleep on kind of classically styled pocket knives either, whether it's an old school slip joint or something more modern like the CJR that's inspired. What is that, CJRB RIA? Did I flub that line?
Abbreviated a little bit.
Did I? CBGB. Apologies. The CJRB RIA, which is inspired by kind of old school pocket knife lines. You get this kind of uninterrupted line basically towards the edge itself. You got a little bit of a sharpening choil here, but you can still choke right up on that handle and put as much leverage as you can, at least with a smaller knife like this, onto your cut. So maybe check these guys out. This one right here, Knife Center exclusive with a RPM 9 blade seal, I believe. Yes, about 50 bucks. But again, this series also, like the Ontario Rat, starts around the $30 mark for the least expensive version. So hope that helps. All right, next question comes from Juan Sanger. My brother is getting Mafried next year. Oh, no, that's just a spot on my screen. My brother is getting married next year. That makes more sense.
I'm less interested.
Mafried, that's a good word. And I need a nice knife to commemorate his Mafridge. I was looking for a Chris Reeve Menundi in Macassar Ebony, which would be a great choice, but they're impossible to find. I'm also not sure it would get a ton of use outside a very formal environment. Any suggestions on something high quality, classy, yet still useful? I think I have a really nice option right here, and it's one I'm kind of considering myself for a similar situation. The Tactile Knife Company Rockwall thumb stud knife. This knife is put together really well. It comes in about $300 right now, made in the USA. You've got a Magna Cut blade, which is pretty sweet, and titanium handles with a liner lock here. And the reason I like this for this type of situation is I kind of think of it as a little bit of a hybrid between something like a Menundi and a small Sebenza in a way. You've got the penknife qualities of the Menundi, but it's got a little bit more to hold on to than the Menundi. And also, it's certainly got a high-end vibe, but it's a little less kind of ornate than a Menundi typically would be. So it's still fancy enough to live in kind of high-class environments, but it feels a little bit less restricted to that type of use, if that makes any sense. Like this would look just as good in a pair of blue jeans as a pair of like high dollar Armani, whatever is, I don't know, what do they wear? Pants?
I suppose.
Probably pants. Really, really cool knives. Like I said, about $300 right now, so they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, but they work so well. Nice, clean profile when folded up. You've got milled lines here that look like they're really deep, so you get a good visual satisfaction out of it, but it's not something that's crazy sharp. It's not something that's going to be super kind of teary on the fabric of your pants. Deep carry pocket clip. Nice identifiable deep carry clip too, which is kind of nice. Like for knife nerds in the know, if they see that clip, they'll know what you're carrying. That is always pretty cool. Dual thumb studs, even though the pocket clip is not reversible. Some nice kind of spiral fluting treatment on the thumb studs itself, and then the action. It's very, very satisfying indeed. Thin blade steel, excellent blade steel, great cutting geometry. Check that one out. All right, next question comes from Noah Leiter. Hey DCA, I am a broke college kid trying to save up for a new knife, and I have a $100 budget. Can you help a kid out? P.S. I work at a liquor store, so something themed alcohol-ish would be awesome. Well, my first thought right away was Spyderco Drunken, but that's way too expensive for this this budget.
Maybe
and also,
when he makes manager.
Huh?
Maybe when he makes
Maybe
manager.
when you make manager. I don't know, like liquor store manager still probably can't afford a Spyderco Drunken, I don't know.
I haven't worked in one. I just visit.
Just practically live there, buddy. So that was my first thought, but that's out the window. My second thought was the Condor Moonshiner, which is also probably exactly the wrong knife for you to use at your job, which is, but come on, that's fun. So then my thought was, let's talk to Thomas actually, because, I joke about him, living in a liquor store, but he actually used to be a bartender. So he's got some good insights on this. But before I get to, what we actually settled on, which comes in significantly less than your budget, we've done some, I think some pretty good videos on kind of the best steel options under the $100 range, as well as some stuff where, knives that feel more premium than they are under that $100 range too. So we'll try to point links to those. Maybe you can check out some of those options. But for a college kid working in a liquor store who wants a quality knife, Thomas came up with this, and I think he's spot on. Something from the Kershaw Emerson series. This is the CQC 10K. $45 for this, so plenty of budget left over. And the reason is the Emerson Wave feature right here. Does a couple of things. One, yes, you can use it as a bottle opener. Little less so as a prying task, but as a sort of like pull tab, it works fairly well, and certainly an impressive way to pop a bottle top with, to impress the drunk people buying alcohol from you.
It doesn't take much.
It's true. And also, a liquor store could be kind of a rough, tumble place certain times, and having something with fast pocket deploy access like this could be a nice thing. Stainless steel frame lock on this. We've got a G10 front handle and 8CR series steel, 3.5 inches. There are several models in this this collaborative range with different blade shapes, some with D2 steel, so you get a little bit of an upgrade there as well. But I think one of these would be a pretty nice option, because when we're thinking about alcoholish, we're thinking like bottle opener stuff. There's several Kershaws that have bottle openers built in, and that's kind of what led us to this one, even though it's not as strictly designed as a bottle opener. If you want a fixed blade, maybe check out the DPX Hiker. It's got that notch there on the spine, which does work as a pocket deployer on the folding versions of these knives, but even more easily works as a bottle opener too, which is nice. Carabiner gate there at the back. Sheath, hard plastic with a strap, but you can attach a belt, some belt hardware there if you like. 75 bucks for these, about 125 for an S35 VN stainless version. This version right here is 1095 carbon steel, however. All right, next question comes from brand name Dubs. Hey DCA and Thomas, I was wondering if you could give some recommendations for a good knife for an amateur bartender. I'd like to give a couple of my close friends some knives as a gift. My one friend loves making cocktails and practicing mixology as a hobby, but he's not much of a knife guy, but I wanted to get him something he could use when making drinks. Budget around $100. Thank you for including Thomas, because as we just mentioned, he was a more than amateur bartender there for a while before we kind of said, hey, just keep working here, making videos for us. And we actually kind of both had the same thought here. For making cocktails and stuff, you don't really need something like, no real folder jumped out, but you need a good paring knife or a good utility knife at least for cutting stuff up. But if you want to give him something special and something that will kind of elevate the craft, little, what do they call these exactly? The bird's beak style of paring knife can be great as well. Thomas, what's it great for?
Fruit peels.
Fruit peels, making twists, stuff like that. Plus it just looks cool, and you can get in something really more premium like this Sgian right here too, about 85 bucks for it. You've got a VG10 core Damascus clad blade, pack of wood handles here, really classy looking. Got that D-shaped cross section. So this is, a right-hand bias knife. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. And it's certainly going to make an impression on the bar stand and while he's making some stuff with it too. Apart from that, I don't know, we could get him an ice pick, perhaps.
Good.
Not really a knife. But the other thing you mentioned that, he's not really a knife person. And the thing that even people who aren't really knife people will still wind up appreciating is a Swiss Army knife. And they make a model perfect. This is the Wader. Comes in 22 bucks. So you could even really get them both of these and not be that far over 100 bucks. A couple of bar essentials right here. You do have your paring knife built in. You've got the combo tool, which opens bottles and cans, and you've got a corkscrew on the back. This is the mixologist's Swiss Army knife as far as I'm concerned. Just what you need, and certainly useful far beyond just the bar. One other thing that I think is cool. Oh, actually, I forgot to grab one, which we'll put a picture up here. The MKM Malga 6 could be really nice as well. It has a bottle opener and it has a corkscrew. It also has that little cocktail fork, so if you're like fishing out olives or stuff like that.
Or that last maraschino cherry.
Or that very last maraschino. It's always that last one that gets you. That could be cool. So we'll have a picture up here because I don't have one. Sorry. But also a great choice. And one more thing that's just cool. This one right here comes in about 128 bucks, but some versions, the CJRB versions, can be had for considerably less. The Kinetic Tool series, because not only is it technically a balisong trainer, you've got a bottle opener right there, and this is plenty cool to play around with. Ooh, look, you want to open that? Here, there you go. On top of that, it's also an automatic. These are just so much fun, and certainly would be appreciated by the amateur bartenders out there, I think. Check those out. All right, that brings us to the lightning round for today. McSquirgle asks...
I had a feeling that would trip you up.
Got me. McSquirgle asks, the saying that D2 takes a lousy edge but holds it forever has got me thinking, was D2 designed as a cutlery steel, or was it a steel that made a transition to use in knives later on? The latter. Up until very recently, like the last couple of decades, most steels, or as far as I know, pretty much every steel used in knives was something that was made more generally. And D2 is a tool steel primarily used, originally at least, for tool stamping dies, that sort of thing. Big shearing presses, that sort of stuff. And they found, hey, it works not bad as a cutlery steel as well. But yeah, up until stuff like S30V, some other stuff around the same time as that came out, were the first steels that I know of that were originally developed as cutlery steels specifically. Unless you want to say, I mean, AEBL was designed as a razor blade steel. Or at least that's what we think of it nowadays. So maybe it goes back a little bit further than that. But historically speaking, at the very least, without going past the past century, things were not designed as cutlery steels first and foremost. So, but that's what D2 steel started out as anyway. Kyle Elwell asks the next question. Hey DCA, my father collects old school single and double bladed slip joint, long skinny bladed fruit/produce knives. It's a lot easier to read than speak. Why are these so hard to find in the modern age? I know what you're talking about. It's something like this. This is the Schrade Fruit and Melon Sampler knife. It comes in about 13 bucks these days. It's not something you see very many premium options of out there because, quite frankly, it has much more limited usage nowadays, and it's not really a collectible pattern for most folks. So it's cool to see your old man who does collect that. Actually, those Nick Swan customs we had, double D dent customs from Blade Show recently, kind of have a similar profile to this.
I would do it.
I'm thinking of all kinds of stuff that I forgot to put on the table here. Picture. Bing. Maybe. But that's pretty cool. I'm curious to see what kind of other examples your father does have, because I don't know of too many. We have just a handful of folding versions in our warehouse right now at all, which is saying something. So anyway, next question. Mark the Boss. Hey DCA, how do you put a toothy edge on a folder? I'm a knife nut and own way more knives than any normal human would ever need. Me too. However, my wife puts me to shame. She uses her knife like a champ. She's a brewer and needs to open a lot of grain bags, either double wallpaper or woven plastic. I've always put a mirror polish on her knife, but I feel a toothier edge would be more beneficial. Her current is a Benchmade mini grip in S30V. PS, don't like serrations. Easy. How to put a toothy edge on a folder. Don't sharpen it as highly. Just kind of walk it back a little bit. Let's say, you're talking mirror polish. I don't really go for a mirror polish myself, but I do put a pretty highly refined edge. I use let's say, for example, you normally start with, or you finish with something about 1200 grit and then strop it. Maybe back it up a little bit. Maybe 800 grit. Maybe 600 grit even, perhaps. That's all a toothy edge is just a less refined edge. So pretty easy to actually make it happen too. All right. Now we come to our segment called Measured Once, Cut Twice, where we take another stab at a previous question. And you guys had some great suggestions for the fellow last week who was looking for an alternative to a traditional Sgian that he could wear in a similar way, like in a sock while wearing a kilt, but would be a little more utilitarian. And I wanted to highlight a couple of y'all's suggestions because they were really good. First one that came up several times was the Cold Steel Secret Edge. Very affordable, 25 bucks, and it's got, although the handle's a little straighter than what we think of maybe as a traditional Sgian, the blade has got Sgian all over it. However, the reason I did not show this knife, because I am well aware of it, is because of the sheath. This gentleman was looking for a leather sheath in particular. So good sheath on this with the Securex, yes, but not leather. Still, a very cool knife and could be a very nice budget option, so worth talking about. My other two favorites that you folks came up with were two Zolingen-made Bokers. The Barlow BFF from Lucas Burnley. Really cool little knife. 188 bucks for this one with an AEBL blade and a walnut handle. Very utilitarian blade shape right here. It's about the right size. Maybe a little small for most kind of Sgian uses. Both of these are actually probably a little bit smaller than I was initially looking for, which is why I kind of overlooked them. But still, great option. And as far as sock carry, this leather sheath with its clip there should work pretty well, even if you want to rely on more than just the friction of the sock itself. That's going to be pretty cool. Other option, and one of my favorite Zolingen-made Bokers of all time, recently anyway, the AK1 Daily Carry. This one right here, sorry, the AK1 fixed blade. Daily Carry is not part of the name. $240 for this one with burlap handles, RWL 34 blade steel, 3-inch blade. I definitely go with the this version as opposed to the modified Wharncliffe for a Sgian new replacement. And similarly, you've got a leather sheath with an ulti clip there for a little extra sock retention, so to speak. So good on you folks for all of your suggestions. These were my favorites that you all came up with, so worth spotlighting for sure. All right, which brings us to our final question for the day, the most serious question of the day, which comes from Brandon Lowe. I am currently training gorillas for Guerilla warfare, and I need a good knife to accommodate their massive mitts. The knife needs to be able to flex between tactical use and camp tasks. Any suggestions? Oh, ye of little faith, absolutely. The Fox Monkey Thumper. There you go, $222 for these. You've got the finger ring at the back for your tactical uses, retention in the fighting grips, but you've also got a rather, I shouldn't say rather traditional blade, but a fairly conventional and fairly versatile blade here. Nylock steel, 3.5 inches. Take care of your camp tasks. This was my first inclination, and it's a pretty cool knife, but I started thinking, and wouldn't it be terrifying and terrifyingly awesome for the gorillas to be running out of the woods, running out of the tree line with the carcass splitter? And you can do your camp tasks with that too. Believe me, I've done it. Surprise carcass splitter appearance. There we go. Sit down carefully. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you all for your questions. Make sure to leave your submissions down in the comments section for potential future highlighting in this video series. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, links in the description will take you to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, because you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next knives when you're putting down your money on one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.
Time for a drink.